thousands of Catholic nuns unite to wholeheartedly declare trans people are beloved by God. A group of over 6,000 Catholic nuns has joined the fight for trans rights, writing in an open letter that trans and non-binary people are, quote, beloved and cherished by God, end quote. The Sisters of St. Joseph Federation and several other Catholic organizations published an open letter on Trans Day of Visibility that supports the LGBTQ+ community and criticizes the recent influx of oppressive and discriminatory legislation sweeping the U.S. The letter read, quote, "We mark March 31st, International Day of Transgender Visibility, as a time to celebrate and acknowledge and uplift folks who identify as transgender, non-binary, and/or gender-expansive. We know our actions and commitments must extend beyond this day's observance," end quote. The nun's letter added that trans people in the United States are experiencing harm and erasure due to anti-LGBTQ+ legislation, discrimination, and harmful rhetoric from some Christian institutions, including the Catholic Church. The Catholic groups who signed the letter share a wish to provide deep belonging for trans people in the church, and even went as far as to say that the church will become an oppressor unless it accepts the LGBTQ+ community. This message of LGBTQ+ acceptance comes shortly after Pope Francis' clarification in January that although he doesn't think being gay is a crime, he still believes that homosexuality is a sin. Buckle up, children. I was raised Roman Catholic. I went to the Catholic grade school. I went to a Catholic high school. I even went to a Catholic college. And my number one question is, where the F were these nuns when I was coming up? Because they sure as hell weren't doing this back in my day. And I take exception with will become an oppressor. Yeah. Excuse me, they already are. They already are. And it's been that way for centuries, not just recently, for centuries, long before I was born. You know, I'm happy they're coming around. I kind of find it, well, maybe I shouldn't find it surprising that it's women, because, I mean, I've seen nuns especially come out and say, this is wrong, that is wrong, the other thing is wrong, when the men, you know, because it's a patriarchy after all, let's get it right. And I'm being polite about my patriarchy. And my train of thought just derailed. But, you know, I'm just happy to see, you know, it always seems like the women are always in front than the men, to me.
From my experience, coming out in the 80s, between high school and college, and in that time period with the AIDS crisis. Mm-hmm. I'm from the Midwest in St. Louis, and some of the biggest staunch supporters of the then developing healthcare programs and housing programs were nuns. So I'm very blessed that most of the nuns in my life were supportive back then, and were on the forefront screaming and demanding and debating. And so, you know, I think the women are going to be in the forefront for the most part. Not every organization is perfect, but my experience with the nuns is they were always the first ones to go, excuse me, this is not right.
And, you know, I think that, and you and I are roughly the same age. Yeah. You're a little more aged than I am, but that's
Thank
okay.
You.
But no, in the 80s, when I was also at Catholic high school in Indianapolis, there was, they were the first generation of nuns to be affected by the Vatican II Council, which was aimed at liberalizing, or at least being more understanding in the church and being more inclusive. So I think that sort of collided. And of course, there's been a huge movement to shy away from or run away from the Vatican II liberalizations. Francis has brought it back a little bit, but for an organization that moves over centuries and millennia, not years, it is still very frustrating.
It is very frustrating.
I think it's amazing. I really think it's amazing. My mother's a minister. I was brought up in the church. I'm Baptist now, but I was raised Methodist, so Christian. And if something like that would happen in my church, I would be like floored, because even though I attend church like every other Sunday, I don't talk about me being trans at church. I go to church, I hear the word, and I leave. I don't know what that would be like to actually have someone at my church advocating for me to be a part. I think it's amazing.
You know, but the thing is, there are pockets of allies out there, and there are more pockets than we think, and they're probably bigger than we think. A couple weeks ago, we did the story of German bishops who had signed a letter saying that they will start blessing same-sex unions, divorced unions, other things like that in the coming couple of years. There's also a group. We talked about the hateful legislation that the nuns are railing against, and rightly so. One of those bills was signed this week in Indiana. And a group that I follow, they're called Catholic Allies. They're a Facebook group. They're based out of Indianapolis, and they're just amazing. And they did a post when this was signed, I think it was yesterday, to Indiana transgender people who may feel especially rejected and excluded today. Catholic Allies stand with you. We love you for who you are, and we honor your right to exist. Know that we see your value and dignity. We will continue to call for respect, compassion, and sensitivity to be extended to you. And I think that sums it up. There's a lot of lay people out there. There's a lot of great groups like Catholic Allies that are doing this. They're raising money for a scholarship to send kids to college. I mean, they're doing a lot. Our supporters are out there. Let's just make sure, once they identify themselves, let's acknowledge them, and let's embrace them the same way that they're embracing
right now,
us.
what's important in all this information, because I too am Roman Catholic in theory. I don't go to church, but I am spiritual and go to other churches instead. The grassroots organizations, the people, the nuns, the programs, the organizations that deal with transgender youth and gay youth and on a daily basis, those are the ones we're getting support with. The problem is the hierarchy that's lost up higher up, whether it be the Vatican or here in the United States. You know, those are the people that have kind of lost touch with the realities of the world, and those are the people that we constantly are seeing bickering and fighting.
Yep.
No different than politicians. The higher up in politics they go, the more they tend to forget what the daily situation is, and they argue over semantics rather than the reality of, is this my paycheck or is this my job? You know, so I always support the grassroots organizations because those are the reality issues.
So even though I said it was amazing, which it is, what I do hope is that it's not just on Trans Day of Visibility,
it's every day.
That it's every single day. Because we always see people for Trans Day of Remembrance and Trans Day of Visibility. They're showing up for the trans community, but after that, it's crickets.
Yeah, talk to me next Saturday, you know?
Yeah, truly.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.